Some big news out of college football this morning. Ohio State defensive end Chase Young is being suspended indefinitely. He will not play tomorrow against the Maryland Terrapins. At least that's what we know so far. But with Ohio State's schedule coming up, do the Buckeyes really need Chase Young on the field? If we look at the schedule coming up, tomorrow against Maryland, shouldn't be an issue. Then next week they play Rutgers. It shouldn't be an issue either because it's Rutgers. But the biggest issue with Ohio State is going to be that showdown against Penn State, a matchup that's being hyped, one of the biggest matchups of the season that's going to have not only Big Ten championship game implications, but possibly college football implications. But that might be a problem for Ohio State. But the offense, I think, is going to be able to prevail the Buckeyes at least till the college football playoff. Because after Penn State, they play Michigan, and Michigan has not beaten Ohio State since, 2002, 2003? At least not in the last 15 years, which Ohio State should be fine. And then let's assume that Ohio State beats Penn State, which is going to be their toughest opponent of the season at this point. They go to play in the Big Ten championship game against either Minnesota, Iowa, or Wisconsin, which I think at this point it could potentially be Iowa based off of how the schedule is panning out, or Wisconsin, because I think both those teams will be able to beat Minnesota. So I think they'll play whoever it is they play in the Big Ten championship game. I think they'll win pretty convincingly. So I still think Ohio State is going to go 13-0 and play in the college football playoff. Even if they end up losing to Penn State by 3 points, I think the committee will understand that Chase Young was not present, and they'll probably be a little bit more lenient towards that. I think if a close loss to Penn State would still get Ohio State in, especially if Penn State were to complete the season 13-0, and with Ohio State's only loss being to Penn State. So the rumor with this whole Chase Young situation is that he accepted money. At least that's what the rumor is going around, that he accepted money from his agent. But then there is a Twitter account I follow. It's kind of like a comedy account for Cleveland sports. Like they do comedy on the Browns and the Cavaliers, even Ohio State. So this is what was tweeted off of that account, and it's titled Anonymous Direct Message Sources Strike Again. And it starts off by saying, 10 a.m. you might be hearing about not only Chase Young, but J.K. Dobbins as well. I hope this is wrong, but sounds like both were involved. Accepting $5,000 from someone in Lakewood. From a very reliable source, Chase Young took money to fly his family to the Rose Bowl. It was not from an agent. It was not from anyone associated with Ohio State. He will be out at least 2 weeks, possibly the entire year. Everything is in the NCAA's hands. Ohio State believes there's a strong chance it could only be 2 games. With the new likeness stuff where players could benefit, etc., there could be a way to spin this. Attorneys working hard on this already. Hopefully it's 2 games and we get to rest him and get him back for Penn State and the team up north, which is referring to Michigan. Ryan Day released a statement this afternoon. So it could make sense with that story. It does line up because allegedly this whole thing, it's a allegation from 2018, and that is something that could make sense, especially flying the family to the Rose Bowl, which definitely makes sense if J.K. Dobbins is involved as well. Possibly, depending on how you look at it. But I still think Ohio State will be able to win games with or without Chase Young. And if this rumor is true, based off these direct message sources, without J.K. Dobbins as well, if that happens. It wouldn't surprise me if something else came out from this. But I think this is the NCAA. I mean, don't get me wrong. Well, don't say this is a stupid take, although it probably is. I think this is the NCAA going out of their way to try to get Ohio State to not win this national championship. Because the NCAA, they don't want a non-SEC team winning this national championship. They don't want a non-SEC team winning the national championship 2 years in a row. And because the SEC is the big conference in college football that gets you all the money. And think about it. Who's the biggest threat to win the national championship to either LSU and or Alabama, depending on who wins the showdown in Tuscaloosa tomorrow? Ohio State. So, with the whole athletes starting to get paid for their likeness, it's stories like this that makes it a relief knowing that athletes will soon be able to start earning money off their likeness. So, to sum this all up, I think Ohio State is going to be just fine without Chase Young. So, at least that Penn State game could be a concern, depending on what happens up until that. Does Ohio State suffer any more injuries or any more suspensions? Stuff like that. But based off what I've seen in college football so far, with Ohio State, with all of their opponents coming up, I think Ohio State's going to be just fine. They'll be in the college football playoff. So that's all I've got. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you soon.